There was once a woman who wished very much to have a little child, but she did not know where to get one. So she went to an old witch and said,
"I should so much like to have a little child. Can you tell me where I can find one?"
Oh, that can be easily managed. Here is a barleycorn of a different kind to those which grow in the farmer's fields and which the chickens eat. Put it into a flower pot and see what will happen.
And she gave the witch 12 shillings, went home, and planted the barleycorn. Immediately, a beautiful large flower sprang up, somewhat like a tulip, but with the petals tightly closed, as though it were still a bud.
"It is a beautiful flower,"
said the woman, and she kissed the red and golden-colored leaves. As she did so, the flower opened, and it was indeed a real tulip. But within the flower, upon the green velvet stamens, sat a very delicate and graceful little maiden, who was scarcely half as long as a thumb. So the woman called her Thumbelina. A nicely polished walnut shell served her for a cradle. Her mattress was made of the blue-violet leaf. There she slept so softly all night. In the daytime, she played on the table, where the woman had placed a plate of water surrounded by flowers, with a large tulip leaf floating in the middle. On this leaf Thumbelina could sit and sail from one side of the plate to other, using 2 white horsehairs for oars. One night, while she lay sleeping in her pretty bed, a toad crept through a broken pane of glass in the window and leapt right upon the table where Thumbelina lay sleeping under her rose-leaf quilt. And she took up the walnut shell in which Thumbelina lay asleep and jumped with it into the garden. There flowed a large, broad stream, but on the bank it was muddy and wet, and here the toad lived with her son. "Croak, croak, brek ke kex," was all her son could say when he saw the tiny maiden in her lovely bed. "Do not speak so loud, or you will wake her," said the old toad. "She might escape from us yet, for she is as light as swan's down. We will place her on one of the broad water lily leaves out in the river. It will be like an island to her. She cannot run away while we are preparing the guest chamber under the marsh." Far out in the stream grew many large water lilies with broad green leaves that seemed to float on the top of the water. The leaf farthest from the shore was the largest of them all, and to this the old toad swam with Thumbelina's walnut shell cradle. The tiny Thumbelina woke very early in the morning and began to cry bitterly when she found where she was, for she could see nothing but water on every side of the large green leaf. Toad sat under the bank, decorating her room with rushes and yellow flowers, to make it look pretty for her new daughter-in-law. Then she swam out again with her ugly son to the leaf where Thumbelina stood. The old toad made a low curtsy in the water before her and said, "Here is my son. He shall be your husband, and you shall live together happily in the marsh." "Croak, croak, brek ke kex," was all the son could say. Then they took up the pretty little cradle and swam away with it, leaving Thumbelina all alone on the green leaf. Poor little Thumbelina sat weeping on the floating leaf, for she did not want to live with the horrid toad or to have her ugly son for a husband. The little fishes, swimming beneath the water, had seen the toad and heard what she said, so they lifted their heads above the water to look at the tiny maiden. As soon as they caught sight of her, they thought her so pretty that they felt very sorry for her and would not allow the ugly toad to carry her off. They gathered together around the green stalk which held the leaf on which she stood. And they gnawed it in two with their teeth. Away floated the leaf down the stream, carrying Thumbelina far from the reach of the toad. On it she sailed past many towns, and the little birds in the bushes saw her and sang, "What a lovely little creature." A white butterfly also fluttered round her boat and at last alighted upon it. So Thumbelina tied the little creature to her boat with a piece of fine thread, and now the leaf glided on much faster than before. Presently, a large May bug flew past. She caught sight of him, and in a moment, he had seized her round her delicate waist with his claws and flew with her up into a tree. The green leaf floated away, and the butterfly was still tied to it, so he could not follow her. Oh, how frightened Thumbelina felt when the May bug carried her away. But she was especially sorry for the beautiful white butterfly which she had tied to the leaf, for if he could not free himself, he would be starved to death. But the May bug did not trouble himself about that. He seated himself by her side on a large green leaf, gave her some honey from the flowers to eat, and told her she was very pretty, although she was not in the least like a May bug. After a time, all the other May bugs who lived in the same tree came to pay Thumbelina a visit. They stared at her, and the young lady May bugs turned up their feelers and said, "She has only 2 legs. How ugly that looks, and she has no feelers. She is as thin as a human being." "Oh, she is ugly," said all the lady May bugs, although Thumbelina was really very pretty. The May bug who had carried her away began to think so too, now that all the others said it, and he would have nothing more to do with her. He flew down with her from the tree and placed her upon a daisy, where he left her to do as she pleased. Poor little Thumbelina sat all through the summer alone in the great wood. She wove herself a bed of grass and hung it up under a broad leaf to protect herself from the rain. She sucked the honey from the flowers for her food and drank the dew that lay upon the leaves every morning. Thus passed away the summer and the autumn. But then came the long, cold winter. All the birds who had sung to her so sweetly flew away, and the trees and flowers withered. The large clover leaf under which she had lived shriveled up, and she was so terribly cold, for her clothes were torn, and she was herself so delicate and small. Then she set out to seek shelter in the forest, but there was no home for her. At last she came to the door of a field mouse's house, which was a little hole under the corn stubble. There the field mouse lived in warmth and comfort, with a whole store of corn and beans. "Poor little creature," said the field mouse, "you must come into my warm room and dine with me." So Thumbelina did so, and after that, she lived with the field mouse for some time. "You may stay with me all winter," said the field mouse, "only you must keep my room clean and tell me stories." Soon a rich mole came to pay them a visit. He admired Thumbelina and wanted to marry her. Though he had never seen the sun and thought it dreadful that it should shine into his tunnels, he was very wealthy and clever. Poor Thumbelina was not happy, for she loved the sunshine and the flowers, but she could not say no. The mole had promised the field mouse many things if she would give him the tiny maiden as his wife. One day, as they walked through the mole's dark passages, they came upon a poor swallow lying half dead. Thumbelina felt sorry for it and secretly cared for it through the winter, feeding and warming it until spring came. When the bird was well enough, it thanked her and flew away. Thumbelina cried, for she loved the little swallow dearly. The time came when she must marry the mole and go live deep underground, never again to see the bright sun. But just as she was saying farewell to the world above, she heard a familiar song. It was the swallow. "Come with me, dear little maiden," he said. "You have saved my life, and I will take you to a warmer country." Thumbelina climbed onto his back, and away they flew over mountains, forests, and seas, until they reached the land of flowers. There the swallow placed her gently upon a large white blossom. In the center of the flower sat a tiny fairy prince, no larger than Thumbelina herself, with a crown of gold on his head and wings on his shoulders. He was delighted to see her and gave her his hand. "You shall be my wife and queen of all the flowers," he said. Then all the fairies came out of the blossoms and brought her presents. She was married to the fairy prince under the blue sky, and the swallow sang above them for joy. And from that time, she was no longer called Thumbelina but had a new name, the Queen of the Flowers.